Today, the prophet Isaiah and also St. James invite us to rejoice for all that God is doing among us in the world of nature and in our own lives. And in the images given in the scriptures today, we see joy taking place, first of all, in the world of nature, as the barren deserts revive and the farmers' fields produce their crops by way of the gift of water. And for the people of Israel, water, of course, signified much more than just natural water, but the Red Sea marked the boundary between their slavery and their freedom. The Jordan River was the boundary between their 40-year journey in the desert and their entrance into the Promised Land. But it is not only nature and the natural world that is given joy, it's also human beings, as the Lord shows to us through other physical signs, through the forms represented by the healing of physical limitations and suffering, that we too are saved and we are filled with joy by the Word of God. The gift of water and the gift of the Word come to us in a very important way as Christians in the sacrament of our baptism, because through the water and the Word of Christ, we are saved. The joy and the gladness, the restoration, the new life that is predicted in the prophets and shown in scriptures is given to each of us personally. Now, while the natural world seems to respond almost immediately to this transformation, when, for example, the rain falls or land is irrigated, for us, the transformation in us only happens when we cooperate with the grace of God. God awaits our freedom. God waits for us to invite him to fulfill within us this gift of new life. The mystery of human salvation is that, on one hand, God wishes to save everyone, and yet God also wills our cooperation. As it has been said, God does not save us without us. God awaits our decision. So if we're looking for that restoration, looking for that promised joy, oftentimes it's found by way of the choices and decisions we make, even in our everyday lives. The past few weeks, Pope Francis has been teaching about making good decisions in Christian life, and I'd like to offer a quote from him, a rather lengthy quote of one of his teachings on this topic, because in that same teaching, he also points out for us how these good decisions are a source of joy for us. Francis said, "It takes intelligence, skill, and also will to make a good choice. Everyone has to make decisions. There is no one to make them for us. At a certain point, adults can freely ask for advice, they can reflect, but the decision is our own. We can't say, I lost this because my husband decided, my wife decided, my brother decided. No, you have to decide. Each of us has to decide. And for this reason, it's important to know how to discern. In order to decide well, it is necessary to know how to discern." The gospel suggests another important aspect of discernment. It involves our emotions. The one who has found the treasure hidden in the field feels no difficulty selling everything, so great is his joy. The term used by the evangelist Matthew indicates a very special joy, which no human reality can give. And indeed, it recurs in a very few other passages in the gospel, all of which refer to an encounter with God. The joy of the wise men when, after a long and arduous journey, they see the star again. The joy of the women who return from the empty tomb after hearing the angel's announcement of the resurrection. It is the joy of those who have found the Lord. Making a good decision, a right decision, always leads you to that joy. Perhaps along the way you have to suffer a bit of uncertainty, thinking, seeking, but in the end, the right decision blesses you with joy. Now, if we're truthful and honest with ourselves, we know we don't always make those right choices. We've not always kept the promises of our baptism when we promised that we would reject the bad and choose the good, that we would renounce all forms of evil and sin, and instead choose to walk in the way of Christ. And even in the renewal of our baptism at every Easter, when we said aloud to God and everybody that we would love and serve God more faithfully, sometimes we still do not always live up to that promise. We can all think of moments in our lives when doubt seemed to take the place of faith, when discouragement seemed to rob us of our hope, when our own needs at the moment seemed more important than to give ourselves in love to someone else. And yet our merciful God still desires for us to have joy. Again and again in the course of this year of grace, God calls us back to choose again to walk in the way of Christ. Through the words of the prophets and the apostles, we are invited to receive the gift of God's overflowing mercy. In the sacrament of reconciliation, we have, as it was called in ancient times, a second baptism. It's an opportunity for us once again for Christ to speak his healing word to us. And as for the water, sometimes when we feel deeply the gift of God's loving mercy, some will even shed a tear. Again and again, God offers us a fresh beginning, a new life, more beautiful than the first creation, more beautiful than the wonders of the natural world around us, even more amazing than the healing miracles of Christ. God is among us and has come to save us.